Hey everyone. We will be talking about how we as community managers that are dealing with our communities can gain more insight and gain better understanding of what's going on inside the community. Tribe has few built-in analytics tools. I'm sure most of you guys have worked with it, but we have also very powerful integrations that help you gain better insight and better understand the behavior of your community members. But before we dive into the presentation, I'd like to create some context here. So first of all, when it comes to tracking the behavior and understanding the analytics of the community, there are both qualitative and quantitative metrics that you need to consider. But here specifically, we're talking about how we can track the ones that are mainly quantitative using our data integrations and analytics integrations. And there are different types of communities, right? There are like support communities, there are like social communities, there are insight communities. So really based on what type of community you are running, the metrics can vary, and we'll get to that in a few seconds. But what we'll be covering today is, first of all, we're going to look at different segments of metrics and different stages of the community, and based on that, what data you probably want to measure. And then we see how that data flows within community, and then how Tribe actually measure that data. We'll be looking at two tools today. So the integration from Google Analytics and Amplitude. So we'll see how to set them up, and we'll see how events are being tracked and how you can actually create good dashboards. And then at the last part, we'll have the Q&A session. So Richard Millington is a thought leader on online communities, and he has created a very good model for different stages that any community would go through. So many of you are running, they've just started running your communities, while some of you might already have established and matured community. But more or less, you can see that every community goes through these 5 different stages. The first stage is inception, where you almost get 90% of the content coming from the community builders. So those who have started the community will contribute to most of the content. And then we have the establishment stage, where there is more content flowing. Almost like 50% of content is coming from the community members. And then we have the maturity and saturation, where almost you get to a point that 90% of the content is being posted by the community members. And once you reach that saturation, that's where mitosis starts to happen. So you start to see more sub-communities and more groups need to be built in the community for different members to be able to reach their goal. But in each one of these stages, you would need to track different activities. So for example, in this particular examples, Richard is talking about like number of active contributors which are posting more than one content per month. And then you have top contributors that are posting more than 5 per month. You have single posters who would just come once, maybe post a question and never come back. And you also have visitors. So this might vary. So if you have an inside community, which is private, and you just want to use it as a way to get feedback from your customers, these metrics could really vary and could be different. But what I usually recommend, and what we usually recommend in Tribe, is that based on the stage of the community and where you are, you should focus on certain things. So let's say at the beginning, perhaps your focus should not be very much on the growth of the community, but rather you want to make sure that what you are building with your community, whatever community software you're using, you want to make sure that the content is engaging, the platform is working well, and it actually results in the most retention and engagement of your users, where once you reach establishment, you might be focusing on growth. So I'm a big fan of growth. Make sure that you know what you're tracking, define different cohorts, and based on that to track the events. And that's what we're going to be covering mainly in this webinar, on how you can actually create good dashboards that help you focus on whatever metrics you are measuring. So let's look at how the data actually flows in the community. So imagine you have a thriving community. Everyone is, like members are there, they're doing different activities. So all that data, whether it's a post, it's a new member that is coming, everything is the underlying section, which is we store all the data that is being generated by the members and the activities. And then on the top level, we have the events. So any activities that is being logged and is being actually taken by your community members is being passed and is being recorded. And at the top of that, we have the reporting and analytics, how we actually create a dashboard to measure that data. And these events and these activities can be can be categorized in 3 different ways. So one is around members, and that's the number of members who are registering, those who are logging in, those who are following other people or being followed. And the next one is the content. So all the Q&As, posts, likes, reactions, comments that you get. And last but not least is the structure, which like the way you build the framework of your community. These could be groups, these could be topics, and however you define kind of the how you categorize the content and how you create certain groups for your members based on certain attributes. So when we talk about events, for those who are pretty new to the world of like data analysis and analytics, we are talking about any activity. So every single activity that is happening in the community, we call them events. That's the industry term. And the good thing about Tribe is that we track everything and every one of those events. And when you look at those different type of events, there are around 9 of them that every event around posting a question, answers, comments, topic, groups, and users. So each of these categories, they have their own certain events. So here we have an example around questions. And as you can see, for events around questions, we have the creation of the event. We have when a question is followed. We track an event when a question is re-asked by the community. We have it when users are following or unfollowing it. We have an activity and an event logged when a topic is added to a question, or even a question is pending approval. So you would be able to see the list of all single events. We have around like 30 different events that we track and we log in Tribe platform. You will be able to see the full list, but we had an example that we opened on question to see what we are tracking in there. So looking at different integrations and analytics tools, that event center, which is pretty much tracking all the activities of user, is something that could be connected to different tools. So imagine every single activity is stored in a single database, and then with different integration, it's being sent. Right now we have integrations for Google Analytics, for Amplitude, for Intercom, for Mixpanel. But the good thing is that this center is something that you can subscribe to, and you can pretty much connect it to any platform. So if you're using Power BI or any other platform, you can simply connect that tool or even your own internal tools to that event center. If that's something you require, reach out to your community success manager, and they can help you with that. What we usually recommend is that you set up your Google Analytics from the very first day. And if this is something you haven't done, we strongly recommend to do it right away. That's usually, we even include it in the first like community launch guideline that we provide to make sure that this helps you track the data from the very first day, but it's pretty easy. So if you go and to your admin panel under app section, you'll be able to see the Google Analytics. Once you install that, you can just insert your tracking ID and your property ID, and there is a guideline. We will show you this slide at the end of the webinar. We'll email that to you. There's a link on how you can actually activate. There is a certain instruction that you can follow. But by just tracking that property ID, we start sending those events to your Google Analytics account. And once that happens, once that connection is made, you will start to see that all those events are being passed, and you can see, for instance, based on a certain event, as you can see here, how many of them is being taken. So on Google Analytics, there are 3 different dashboards that we help you build. One is around growth, which is the growth of the members, those who are not even becoming a member, but they visit the community as logged out users, where people are coming from, what are those traffic resources, are they coming from other social media, are they coming from search engine, and even like what is the top source of those members who are registering. Things like that are included in your growth dashboard. Around content, what are the top questions, what are the top answers, what is performing well, what is getting the most engagement. So that's something which is included in the content dashboard. And then we also have the engagement. So the engagement is around the relationship between the members and the contents, like how many reactions they make, how many comments they leave over time, and what are the top activities that they generate within a specific period. The other tool that we recommend is Amplitude, which is a great, another great tool. The reason we have different tools is that many of the, not every dashboard can be created within, let's say, Google Analytics. So probably reports around how users are adopting to your community, like their retention, their funnel, how they're moving. Amplitude is a way better tool to track those. What you need to do is to just create a project in Amplitude. And the good thing is that both Google Analytics and Amplitude are pretty much free. For instance, Amplitude gives you around 10 million free events per month. That's more than enough for any community of, let's say, less than 100,000 members. And then you can get the API key on Amplitude, and all you need to do is to just install that app and insert that API key inside your Amplitude app. Again, we have included the instruction on this presentation file. You can also find that on Tribe customer community. But once you get that key, you just add it to your app, and that's where the events will start to being sent to Amplitude. So this was mainly about the setup. Now we're going to look at how we can actually track events and gain insights once that setup is actually made. So in the way Google Analytics work is that there are 3 different structure of how events are being created. So there is an event category, there is event action, and there is event label. So we'll look at that. So those 9 the pillars that we talked about, for example, the users, the post, the community itself, the topic, the app, the comment, the question and answer, and group. They're all called event categories. But talking about users and looking at users in depth, we'll see that the actions that are being logged by users, such as logging in, registering, updating their profile, updating their image, every single action that the user is taking is being logged and is being sent to Google Analytics. And then if you look at login, the event label is the later perhaps a stage where we say how that login took place. Was the login took place through a single sign-on? Was it through password? Was it through a social login from Google, Facebook, LinkedIn? We even passed that label of the event to Google Analytics. So we have created, based on that, a very concrete template, and that's our gift to our customers that they can go and just download. There is also a link to that. And once you install that template, after you have set up your Google Analytics, then you will start to see a dashboard. And this dashboard is something which we've created based on best practices, pretty much anything that all community managers should be tracking. So for instance, on the growth dashboard, so we have the growth dashboard, we have the content, and we have the engagement. So on the growth, you can see that, for example, we have the new members, how many visits you have got, where did those members sign up from, did they come from search engine or any other resource, as well as what is the total number of members that you have in your community. And then you can also see how many unique users you've got over time. So that's what you will be able to see on the growth dashboard. You will also see the different charts around like member reactions over time, how they're liking, how they're commenting, and also like how is their engagement over time on different days based on their activities. So we strongly recommend to use these templates, and the good thing is that you can always modify them. So the data and through Google Analytics is sent to Data Studio, and you will be able to see all the results pretty much easily. And then let's look at Amplitude and how you can actually create those reportings in there. So Amplitude is providing a different set of reports to you. So for example, if you want to segment your customers based on their behavior, if you want to see how they are moving in your community side through a funnel vision, or how's their retention, how are they coming back, or their composition, and what is their based on different properties, you can see what percentage are taking certain actions or are categorized based on certain criteria. But the way it works is that you usually need to pick an event. For example, if you want to see how many people have provided, how many users have answered a question, you just need to go to event, select that particular event you want to track. So they all start with an event if you want to see the event report, and then you can filter it. So for example, if you want to see the answered questions by those who have verified their emails or unverified, you can easily do that. So you need to choose the event first, and then you choose how you want to filter it based on the attributes of users. And these attributes are pretty much like any label that you can select. For example, you can say those who are bot profiles, those who are moderators. If you want to exclude moderators' activities, or if you want to exclude admin activities, you can just filter that pretty easily on that performance sheet. But once you do that, once you create those reports, then you can create a dashboard out of it. We usually recommend creating these in your initial dashboard, where you can see the growth of the members over time, you can see their retention, you can see their stickiness to your platform. You can also look at their life cycle, how you are actually gaining and attracting more users compared with how many you are losing, and that loss is based on like users that are not coming back to your community. And also on content-wise, you can look at the number of questions asked, answers, replies, and on the right side we have a screen recording of that dashboard created, which you can always talk to our team. They can help you also to provide some insight on how that dashboard can be created. Okay, so let's get to Q&A part. We have some questions posted. Feel free to ask your question by clicking on Q&A button on Zoom, and you can just post it here. All right. Okay, yeah. So we have a question around if you're sharing the recorded webinar. Yeah, we will be sending you the recorded version as well as the presentation file through email. So if you have participated, you'll be able to see that. What's a good growth rate in an online community? Yeah, so as I mentioned, you basically, there isn't any number. It really varies based on the stage of the community as well as the type of the community. So if you are running a public support community, it's very much different than if you have a private inside community which you're dealing with. But basically, if it's something public, somewhere between 3 to 5% growth on a weekly basis is really a great growth rate. But if you have a different type of community, probably you're looking at something else. Okay, great question. So if we do provide a template for Amplitude dashboard, the problem is that the Amplitude doesn't have that capability to create templates. What we are doing is that we are creating a tutorial webinar where for each of those charts that we talked about, we'll tell you what filters you can apply. You can always be more creative by adding more filters based on your use case, but we'll definitely create a tutorial on how to create the Amplitude, but you will still need to do that. You won't be able to import a template. Okay, another great question is asking, which one is more accurate? Is it Google Analytics or Amplitude? So really, at the end, event is being sent to both platforms. There might be sometimes very slight minor differences, and that's because there is a very slight chance that at the time the event has been sent to that platform, it hasn't been confirmed that it was received, but that there is a very low probability of that to happen. So the data should be probably the same. The only thing is that if you install Google Analytics or Amplitude at different times, then their total data would not be the same. So let's say if you look at the total number of members in Google Analytics and Amplitude, if they haven't been activated at the same time, they would look differently. Okay. All right. If you have questions, please post them in the bottom. Yeah, we have a good question around Intercom and how it works. So the integration to Intercom is a bit different. So Intercom is a communication tool. So it's a great tool for enabling the option for your users and for your community members or your customers to be able to talk to you over a chat messenger. They also have powerful inbox solutions where you can actually, based on certain attributes, define different campaigns or send manual messages either as in-app notification or through email. But the way it works is that we pretty much send the same events to Intercom. And then once you want to decide how you reach out to them, let's say if you want to have a campaign where you only send it to a certain segment of your customers, since we have passed all those events to Intercom, you can then create a segment of those users. You can say those who have answered more than 5 questions over the past month, and then you create a segment out of them, and then you start communication with that particular segment. So the way Intercom works is that we send those events to them, but we will have some more tutorials around that, and always feel free to post your questions either to our support team or inside the community. We'll definitely answer that there.